Good afternoon. My name is Dan Schowolf, and I'm on the business operations team here at AtScale. Today we have Dave Mariani, AtScale's Chief Strategy Officer, providing a demonstration of how the largest financial services companies in the world rely on AtScale to modernize their analytics infrastructure. For those new to AtScale, we are a virtual data warehouse, and our customers span across all major verticals and include the likes of JPMorgan Chase, Wells Fargo, TD Bank, Toyota, Wayfair, the Home Depot, and Kohl's. In today's presentation, we're going to speak specifically about the ways in which our financial services customers rely on AtScale for their analytics initiatives. We'll cover how AtScale enables these enterprises to seamlessly adopt the cloud, accelerate their ability to go from branch to transaction in seconds, provide one analytical business, the capability to help with time shift and distinct customer count calculations, and access data through a live connection with the BI tool of their choice, regardless whether that's Excel, Tableau, Power BI, or something else. If you have specific questions, please enter them in the questions section of the webinar, and we'll do our best to get to them after Dave's demo is complete. If we don't have a chance to answer them, we'll make sure that we follow up with you guys individually. And with that, I'll hand it over to Dave.
Thanks, Dan, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm going to take you through a very fast and whirlwind tour of AtScale, including a detailed demo. I'm going to go very fast because we only have a half an hour's worth of time. So if you if you have more questions, please contact us here at AtScale, and we'd love to give you a personalized demo and deep dive. So let's get going with a couple slides just to show you how the system works, and then we'll get into the actual demo itself. So first of all, what is AtScale? I think Dan did a good job. It's a virtual data warehouse. It's multidimensional. It provides security and governed data access. It does it all without data movement. We do that by virtualizing the data platforms, whether they're in the cloud or on-premise. And we do that with a universal semantic layer. So there's only one single view of data, there's one source of truth, and it's all done server side versus being implemented specifically in the BI tools or in your ML platforms themselves. So what does this do for you as a financial services? Really allows you to accelerate your migration to the cloud. That means that your users and all your downstream users that are talking straight to your databases, by talking to AtScale instead, that abstraction layer, it means you can move that data to the cloud without disrupting their use cases or their usage. So you can make it purely invisible to them. And we've done this with many customers where we've been able to move thousands of users and they've never known the difference, even though they've undergone a data platform migration. And we're going to be able to give you performance and fast performance regardless of the size of data. So whether you're looking at branch and region, or whether you're down to the individual transaction, whether that be a credit card or a transaction in the branch or ATM, you'll get full view of the data. Because we don't move it, because we don't pre-aggregate it, that means any question you have, you can answer it without having to leave the confines of your BI tool or ML platform. We're going to work across internal users and external users. We have lots of use cases where our customers have used AtScale not just internally to power their own business analytics, but also with their business partners, whether they be merchants or whether they be payment partners. All that is can be done and secured, and data can be governed for internal and external use through one platform. We're talking about OLAP here. OLAP means year over year, this year versus last year, region versus store, or branch versus region performance, or counting distinct customers, which is a non-additive type of metric. We do all these at scale. So there's no reason to have a separate tool or a separate physical cube. You can do all that with AtScale without data movement and with the speed and the flexibility and the calculation power you get with OLAP. And guess what? Excel is the #1 BI tool on the planet, and we got you covered there. Not just with an import into Excel, which is unsecure and laborious and not scalable, but with a live connection to Excel or Tableau or Power BI or virtually any BI tool or BI platform or ML platform that you want to connect. We got you covered with a live connection, no extracts, no copies of the data. We have a lot of customers that we've helped, especially in financial services, with use cases ranging from fraud detection to retail banking, to loan analysis and quality, all through the different use cases that span getting data that is atomic and at the detail level to data that 30,000 foot, and being able to explore every which way in between. So these customers are all looking to make a leap and modernize their data platform infrastructure without leaving their business analysts or their data scientists behind. And that's what we can do for you. TD Bank is a good example of a customer that made a migration to a Hadoop data lake from Teradata, and discovered that they couldn't migrate their business intelligence users to their Cloudera cluster because it wasn't fast enough and it wasn't suitable for their dashboards and for their analytical needs. We helped them to do that and move those users from Teradata to directly consume on the data lake, all cutting costs from $100 a gigabyte to under $2 a gigabyte, all by moving to a new platform. Tyson Foods is a good example of a company who needed to unify their data assets from across a bunch of different acquired businesses. We allow them to create one virtual view of that data without moving it and without re-architecting their stacks. Home Depot went from a physical SQL Server Analysis Services cube to an AtScale virtual cube on Hortonworks to AtScale virtual cubes on Google BigQuery. Did all those migrations, again, without disrupting users. And BASF, looking for a single self-service environment to be able to migrate to the cloud and also manage multiple instances of on-premise data sources, all wanting to be able to use the same security protocols and have a single source of truth. So let me tell you the story of AtScale before we get into the actual live demo. This, before AtScale, was my infrastructure at Yahoo. I had Oracle data warehouses. We invented Hadoop, the data lake, because the relational model ran out of gas for Yahoo, but none of that worked for my business users. My business users all wanted to use their own version of a BI tool. I had MicroStrategy users, 8,000 of them at Yahoo, that all needed to use MicroStrategy to power their search advertising business. I had users of Click, building Click cubes, who were all using that to manage their European operations. I had hundreds of users of Tableau who are looking to manage their display advertising business. And of course, Excel, 13,000 seats, is where all the data ended up anyway. So this presented me with lots of problems because my job was to deliver analytics to the business, and getting that data to those users meant several copies of data, extracts, and then those users needed to build their own physical cubes, define their own metrics and their own metadata, which meant I had no single source of truth. Everybody had their own version of what a click was or what an ad impression was. What I wanted, which I couldn't build at Yahoo and couldn't buy, was a single semantic layer, a virtual data warehouse. I wanted to play the data wherever it laid, whether it was relational or data lake, whether it was in the cloud or on premise. It shouldn't matter. I should be able to leave the data where it landed without having to move it or make it small. And I needed to be able to provide multiple interfaces to my customers, which meant whatever tool they wanted to use, they should be able to use it with a live connection, all secured and governed in one place, and all fast at OLAP speed. So of course that didn't exist, so we built it. And this is what it looks like in the AtScale platform. What you see here is we're connecting our BI tools through these interfaces, SQL and OLAP, as well as REST, to our virtual data warehouse layer in AtScale. We then connect to your different data platforms, whether they're relational, whether they're data lakes, or whether they're cloud data warehouses like Snowflake and Redshift and BigQuery. We got you covered. And we make all that invisible to the end users themselves. So the end users have one connection, one pane of glass to explore this data that you've defined as a data owner through our visual modeler we call Design Center, which you're about to see. Design Center creates the virtual cubes and our multi-dimensional calculation engine does the heavy lifting, presenting a full multi-dimensional view on that flat data. We create intelligent aggregates through our adaptive cache, and that means we're managing performance without having to move data, but by building aggregations in your data platforms themselves. We also augment those aggregations with in-memory representations for a dimensional cache and a query cache to deliver queries at scale, regardless of size, in under 2 seconds. We do all that with all security. So securing your data at rest, because we inherit all the data characteristics and the security characteristics of your underlying data platforms. We do that through AtScale's patented true delegation. We also add additional layers of security, row-level security, object-level security through perspectives, and of course, full integration with your single sign-on infrastructure, including LDAP, SAML, and Active Directory. Okay, what is why OLAP, and is why OLAP important? Do you want to do any of these things you see over here on the left? Do you want to be able to count your customers? Do you want to be able to compare your branch performance to your region performance? Do you want to be able to look for credit fraud or loan fraud within your organization? Do you want to compare this year to last year? Do you want to be able to manage your currencies across the globe? Of course you do. And to do that, you need OLAP. And without OLAP, you're going to be building all that type of functionality either in ETL or in the BI tool itself, which is not where you want to do it. Do it in AtScale server side once. AtScale will do it for you and be able to scale for any size of data without data movement. Today, I'm going to show you a demo that will take retail banking data where I'm going to explore a lending portfolio. And in that lending portfolio, I'm going to look to see which insights when it comes to quality and loan quality in that portfolio. And I'm going to take a two-step process here. The first step process is I'm going to become a data owner. And as a data owner, I'm going to define a semantic model on that for that lending cube. Once I do that, I'm going to publish that lending cube. And then I'm going to become an analyst. And I'm going to analyze that data live using both Tableau and using Excel and do all that against that virtual cube that I'm about to create before your eyes. So let's get going. Just in case I have some time afterwards, this demo will actually be on BigQuery, by the way. Of course, it can work on any platform, including Hadoop or Snowflake. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run a query right now in Snowflake and start this running here because okay, 1 second here. My SQL row count, SQL row SS row counter. So I'm gonna go ahead and run a query here in Snowflake. And as I'm running that, I'm going to come back later and show you what we can do with TPC DS data that's 265 billion rows. But let's first start with our retail bank and loan data. So what you see before you is a model. So let me give you a quick orientation to how AtScale works. So this is Design Center. And in Design Center, I have a canvas. What you see on the left is my raw data assets. If it's coming from a data lake, these could be files. If it's coming from a relational data warehouse, these would be tables. What you see here is what we call data sets in blue. You see dimensions in gray and in green. And what you see on our right is you see our preview. So you see a retail banking cube, and you see we have dimensions and we have measures. What you see is what you get. So you can see, for example, that I have accounts, that I have demographic data, and I have loan data and the like. Now, if I look at that in Tableau, what you see here is what you see is what you get. So I'm looking at my retail banking virtual cube, and you can see I have my accounts, demographics, loans, and transactions, and there's my measures. What you see is what you get. So let's now go and rebuild this virtual cube that you see here before your eyes. So I'm going to do that by going to my retail banking project, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new cube, and I'm going to call that new cube lending. Now I'm going to go very fast because we don't have much time, and I want to show you as much as possible when it comes to how the tool works. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go get data for my lending cube. And my data is just exposed right here in Design Center. And what I'm seeing here in our data sources tab is my data catalog that comes by talking to just connecting through JDBC to any of my any of my data sources. So I'm going to go and I'm going to take my and look for my my financial services project, and I'm going to use my financial services project to actually go and build this virtual cube. So let's see, I got my financial services demo here, and here's my data, and I got a table called lending. So let's pull that onto my canvas. So now I have my lending data. This is what we call a data set. So what I can do right off the bat is I can start to create measures and dimensions just by dragging things like amount, for example, into my measures pane. So I can call that loan amount. And you can see that AtScale is going to be smart, and it's going to choose its aggregation type. This is where the OLAP happens. So I went ahead and created my first measure called loan amount. So let's go and let's do that with my payments. So I have my payment for my loans. Let's call it loan payment and save that. So I got loan payments. Well, you know, now I want to actually create some calculations. So it looks like I have some dates here, but this date looks like it's a long data type. So let's go and do some data wrangling here by double clicking on my lending data set, which will bring up a view of that data. So here I see I have my dates, and I have a date with Century, but it's not a true date. So I'm going to want to convert that date into a date so my BI tool can treat it as an actual date. And I can do that with AtScale by adding a calculated column. And I'm going to add a calculated column, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it my loan origination date. And I'm going to do that by writing a simple query, and I'm going to write it, in this case, in my Google BigQuery parlance. So I'm just passing through Google BigQuery syntax here. So I don't have to learn a new language. I'm just going to use what comes with your data platform. So I'm going to take my date, and I'm going to parse it. I want to do that, look for my date with Century, and I'll go ahead and test that. And I got my formula. And now I've created a full date column, just like that. Let's go ahead and now let's add in a metric for bad loans. So I'm going to call it bad loan count. And the way I'm going to write that is I'm going to use my status field. So I'm going to write a case statement. I'm going to say case when my loan status is in B or D, That's for late or delinquent. Then count it, give it a 1, else don't. Give it a 0 and end. And that's how I've created my bad loan count. Okay, I got that. Let's create one more metric. Let's just call it a loan count, because I'm going to want to create a loan ratio. So I'll create a loan count. And that's just going to be simply a 1, because I'm going to count everything that's in this table, which I know is a loan. Okay, so now I have my metrics. Let's go back to my canvas, and what you'll see here is that now I have these additional metrics as calculated columns. So let's go ahead and let's add in my bad loan count. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add this to my loans folder. I'm going to organize these. So now I got my bad loans count. Let's go and add in my loan count. And again, I'll add that to my loans folder. And I actually didn't do that originally with my payments. So let's go and add my loan payments to my loans folder. And my loan amount. I forgot to do this when I originally did it. Let's do that. Okay. So now let's go to my preview, and there you see the loans folder, and now you see my 4 metrics. Okay. Well, let's start doing some dimensions now. Well, you remember I created that loan origination date. So we're going to want to go ahead and drag that into my dimensions pane. And now I got my loan origination date. That's done as a degenerate dimension, which means I don't have to join back to that. That's all I need to do is to create that date. So let's now go and let's go and assign this. Let's assign this to a folder as well for loan date. So let's go ahead and make this a pretty name. Let's add it to the loans folder so I can organize that. And let's do the same with its level. So I'm going to take my loan dates and do that. And now if I go back to my canvas and my preview, here we have our loan origination date. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our library. Our library means this is all the things that we can reuse. And I'm going to filter by dimensions. And what I have is I have some dimensions that I can now reuse. I'm going to pull in my account dimension. My account dimension looks simple, but it's actually fairly detailed and comes with a lot. So how do I use my account dimension? I just need to link it up to my lending raw data just by doing that. Now, by doing that relationship, what I've now got, if you look at my accounts, is that I now have my accounts data and I have my demographics data all automatically linked in. So that's great, because now I'm going to be able to do a lot more analysis with that. Okay, so before I do this, let's go and let's add one more calculation. So AtScale has the ability to add post-query calculations. Why do I need to do that? Because I'm going to add a bad loan rate. And I'm going to do that with my bad loan count and divide it by my loan count. Not my loan amount, sorry, my loan count. So by doing that, I'm now writing MDX, and AtScale is doing that for me. So I can see my syntax is valid. I'm going to go ahead and put that into my loans folder, and I've now done a post-query calculation, which you now can see right here, my bad loan rate. So now I've created a ratio. Okay. So let's go and again, if I double click on my accounts, you can see I have district linked in as a dimension and disposition. So this is a way of creating very complex models, but keeping them very simple on the outside. So let's go ahead and let's do a publish of this new retail banking cube. What that means is that I'm now making my retail banking virtual cube. Now I made it available to the world. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to that virtual cube, and I'm going to go ahead and connect to that first with Tableau. So we don't have much time left, so I'm going to go very fast. I'm going to log into, in this case, through Tableau, I'm logging into AtScale Design Center. And I'm not going to work with a data extract. I'm working with a live data. So there's my lending virtual cube, which I just created. Okay, so let's go and see what we're dealing with here. Let's go ahead and look at our loan amounts. That was a live query. We got $100 million of them. Remember that loan date? Here's my loan date. I have automatically got my loans origination by origination date. Let's go ahead and drop in district name. And I can see exactly where my loans are being originated. This happens to be in Czechoslovakia. So this is a Czechoslovakian bank. Let's go ahead and reverse that. You can see some interesting data there. Okay, let's go and look at some bad loan data. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my bad loan rate. And let's see what we got here. So it looks like my bad loan rate is about 11%, which is pretty high. But let's go ahead and look at it by district so we can see if there's any variation there. And let's look at it this way. And let's just do a sort to see who the offenders are. Well, we can see that we have some districts with a bad loan rate of alarmingly high. So let's go and see if there's any correlation to our crime rates in these particular enclaves. So let's do a show me here and look at my crime rates. Well, my crime rates are, we could see Domolis is crime rates only 1% to 2%, yet they have a very high default rate. That's interesting. But it's definitely not crime rate. Well, let's see if it is potentially unemployment rate. A lot of people out of jobs, maybe they might have troubles with paying their mortgages and paying their loans. Well, again, what I'm seeing is Domolis has a very low rate of unemployment rate, 1% to 3%. So they're on the bottom end of the scale. So what's going on here? Well, I'm kind of out of some ideas here without additional data. So let me go back to the virtual cube and let's add some additional data so we can get an answer to this question. So let's go back to our retail lending cube and let's add more data to this model. So if I look at my data here, what I can see is that I actually have some additional data, and I have this additional data in a key value pair field. I have the loan officer. So let's go and add an AtScale by clicking here and add in the loan officer, which is actually in a key value pair, and create a loan officer dimension just by dragging it in like this into my dimension pane, republishing my virtual cube so that I can now see these new results. Coming back to my Tableau on desktop here and hitting the refresh button and wait for it, what we'll see is we got our loan officer. So now we can see what loan officers are originating loans. Let's focus on Domolis, which is the trouble, and let's look at the loan officers in Domolis that own that particular metric. Remember, officer was what I just added to my virtual cube. Looks like we got a person named Sokol. Let's go and look at bad loan rates by officer. And this is, again, the field I just added. And there you have it. Sokol is, something's going on with Sokol, not making good decisions. So finally, we're running out of time, but I want to show you my same, that's the same capability, all done live through Excel. So with Excel, I can connect using the built-in drivers that come with Microsoft Excel, analysis services. So no need to install software to enable your Excel users to get live access to your AtScale virtual cubes. There's my lending virtual cube. I'll go ahead and create a pivot table on it right here live. This is not a data import. This is live access. And there we go. I can go and look at my lending, and I can look at my bad loan rate, look at it by my loan officer, for example, what I just added. And there you have it, the same data, same answers, all with the same security, all done through Excel. So we're out of time, but I'll hand it back to you, Dan, to sort of bring us home here.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. We did get a couple questions come through, but as we are at the half hour, we're going to follow up with those by email, just with the email address that you guys signed up for the webinar with. Thanks everyone for taking the time today to learn some more about how AtScale helps financial services organizations. And if there's additional questions beyond what was asked in the chat, please reach out to either your AtScale account team or just directly through the AtScale website or at hi@atscale.com. Our next live demo will be on May 30th, and we'll be highlighting some specific analytics use cases, this time in the insurance industry. Thanks everybody, and have a great rest of your day.